No, no problem. Just like
He never can make it work.
Hi everyone. Thank you all for coming today for November React Meetup, React.js. And I see a lot of new people here. So I think it may be your first React Meetup in Barcelona. And just want to tell you that normally we're doing them monthly. We're trying to do them monthly. And yeah, just follow Meetup page, follow Barcelona.js also. We are part of it. And visit us, send your talks, because we're actively looking for speakers, and send your feedback, because it's also really, really important for us. And thank Typeform today for hosting us, and Daniel will just like introduce Typeform and our speakers today. And I, as one of an organizer, just want to thank you all for coming.
Okay, so welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to our offices. This is Typeform, and what we build here is a tool for asking people any kind of things. We are a really young company. This is a 3-year-old startup, more or less, but we are growing a lot, and this is why we have such an amazing offices like this. And for me, it's a pleasure to have you here, to know us. And also, it's a pleasure to introduce you to Juho Vesplainen. I'm not sure if I said your name properly.
Yeah, it was like you...
Really close.
Almost got it.
Almost got it, sorry. So he has been here for a week with us, helping us a lot, giving us a lot of ideas. And we wanted to share his knowledge with the React.js community in Barcelona. So that's why we organized this meetup. And I'm really looking forward for the talk that you are going to give us.
Yep.
So welcome, Juho.
So I guess we want to use the mic, or can
No, it doesn't work.
yeah, it doesn't work, so we have to go without. So yeah, so it's Juho Vesplainen. Yeah, I know you can't pronounce it, but anyway, so I'm like half developer, half snowman, because I live in the north, yeah, you know. And I guess that means that I do other things than just develop. I write books and do slides and little consulting training. So here we go. So this is actually like React Tabular. I will just skip to that topic and you'll get what it is. So today's agenda, I will describe how it evolved, because often when you see a component or a library, you just see what you see. You don't see how it became what it is. So instead, I'm going to tell you how what you are going to see became to be. I will discuss a couple of lessons I've learned during this process, because of course when you do something, you screw things up, yeah, and when you make screw-ups, then you kind of know to avoid them. So maybe you can avoid some of what I have done. So then I discuss a tool known as LERNA, and LERNA is something you can use to manage monorepos. Finally, I have a little bonus. So I have a couple of API patterns which I've noticed that are useful for developing React and in general. So this was, yeah, it works. So this is actually a little demonstration my user Artem Sapegin set up. So he found the component and he was like, this is like the greatest React table component ever, and they started using it in their component. And he made a little demonstration for me. So he does a couple of things I don't even do in my own demonstrations, so it's really cool. So you see like basic features like sorting and all that. Yeah, there's the sorting, I mean tracking rows, and it has tree functionality. But all in all, it's quite full featured. Yeah, but I guess I'll move forward. Then I have there's this guy, Tim Dorr. Maybe someone has heard of him, and he said that this is like the best table component out there. So I get like a lot of excitement from users, so I have done something right. Starting points. It was well over a year ago. I had this little CRM project, because you know CRMs are so fun to code, so I needed a little table for it. And I looked up the React implementations, and they didn't look that hot. So I was like, let's do it better. And that's where it started. And it's like the programmer instinct is to do something on your own when the existing options don't look that good. But I don't know if it's a good thing. It's a bad thing. It's a good thing because then you get nice components, all that. But it's a bad thing because it's a time suck. So you will lose a lot of time doing something that kind of feels that should be easy but isn't. I started by pushing logic to a column definition. So I have this like columns will be named like this, and it will contain this data, and it will be formatted this and that. So that was like the fundamental starting point. I started like most guys, they start from single package. So let's throw all the functionality in single package, and that's it. Yeah, first commit, it was January last year. So it was been going on a while. Public release 3 days later. So yeah, now I have some code, let's push it. So 0.20. You can see the basic design here. So this is like data it's just the table data. So you have like an array of objects. Any table library in the world takes this. Nothing special. But this is the more interesting part. So you have the column definition. So you can see that we map a certain property to like the first column, and then we have like this header and this format and this editor. So this is like extension points for me. And I can also manipulate the self-formatting. So this was like the first question, an API. It doesn't look that pretty when I look at it now, but you have to start from somewhere. I also had this table definition, so it's not enough to have like data and columns, but also you have to push it to React somehow. So then you need this React part. Again, it's not the perfect design, because I have far better design at the moment, but you have to start from somewhere. 0.30. So I get like more and more ideas, and let's do more work. I noticed that I have some functionality that should not belong to this package, so I decided to push it elsewhere. So I get this pagination component outside of table component, which is kind of fun. It also gave me a chance to experiment with React context and React context-based design. So I don't have to screw up my table project because I can do the screw up elsewhere. Yeah, and when it comes to the pagination bit, I noticed that there's some logic that could go to a package of its own. So I start getting these packages. The cell interface I had in place, it started to become powerful. You get like search, sort, inline editing. And here's more about the interface. So yeah, there's like formatter, and you get the data and then you format it. You can return React component, whatever, from it. It actually exists in the current design, but it's more powerful. 0.40. So now I realized that let's do some event work so that we can actually control the header. So you start getting these basic concepts. But it was bad design, not flexible enough. So here you can see how not to do it. So you have like header and you have like some handlers, and yeah, it works, but it's not nice. 0.50. I started getting noticed. So I get like first guy is like, hey, here's a peer for you. And then I start improving documentation because I get interest, and then of course, because React is React, the APIs change, and I have to spend the time fixing my project. And I understand that maybe it's good to test your code, so I start writing tests. So because it's not fun to kind of break things all the time. I start understanding that maybe sorting can be like more flexible. So let's write some algorithms. And we get feature known as highlighting. So you have like search results. It's just boring to show that what matched. Instead, it's better to show that this exact bit of this and that row matched. So I got this from it was some Disney guy that drew me up here, and now we have that feature. I understood that it's not that cool to kind of write a lot of utility functions yourself. So let's use LERNAs. So now at this stage we get this external dependency to make our work a little easier. Of course, it ties the project to Lodash, but it's a small cost. 0.60. I start finding these patches everywhere, so I'm thinking that let's put a couple of patches to my project. So I hooked up this BitHound. BitHound gives insight to code quality. So I get this listing, and from that listing I can see that that piece of code sucks, so let's rewrite it and so on. So it's just insight for me about my code, because it's very hard to be objective about your own work. And I set up this dependency thing. It shows none at the moment because there are no direct dependencies at the moment. Of course, there's a Lodash, but it's kind of hidden. Highlighting interface, it became better and better as we get to use code. We understand what's needed better. 0.70. So now we are getting like more and more contributors. So 6 contributors by now. And again, I find these little buttons. So I add that skitter, which is like chat. So you can, if you have like something, you want to say something to me, so you show up at the chat, you say the thing, I say something back. And I found Travis, so I get continuous integration, so that I get high quality contributions, because it's not fun to fix someone's work. Yeah, but we get some functionality like custom props per each row. And we get support for editing complex objects. So every object is not like flat fields. There might be actually fields inside fields, so it's fun to support. 0.80. And yeah, maybe performance cool things too. So let's set those row keys. So it was like, yeah, why didn't I figure out this earlier? But it just happens. But again, tooling changes. Even I kind of contribute to React fatigue because I do some tooling. But yeah, that's the way it goes. I understood that chest is not that fun, so I changed my test setup from chest to Karma and Mocha based setup, which at time it was good move because Karma and Mocha were so much better. 0.90. I simplified my development flow, so it's easier to get contributions. I might change the flow at some point again, but now I'm just in single master model. Of course I do feature branches, but it's just the value of simple. I had this huge readme, and when a user shows up, it's really boring to like walk through all of that information. So I split it up. I started working on documentation a little bit more. 0.10. Again, more people show up, and some naming changes happened because old names were not that great. Again, yeah, more naming. 0.11. Better sorting. So instead of having sort by one column, let's do multiple. 0.12. I realized that maybe it's good idea to have changelogs, because if you don't have changelog, how anyone is going to figure out what has changed between releases? And it's like the first thing, because when you get this version bump, then you're like, what happened? Then you have to go like through git logs, and that's not fun. So you can do this fan service and write a little bit, describe what has happened, so people can actually use your work. Lodash went to 4.0 because, it just evolves, and we get 5.0 very soon, I think in a month or something like that. 0.13. Again, enhanced functionality. So now we can do like multiple search filters. 0.40. And I realized that maybe it's a good idea to like force people to set that row key, because I don't want that they complain of performance. So let's force that. There were a couple of heavy dependencies in the project, so I just refactored them out. We have this awesome word in Finnish, pääversiomuutospelko, that describes, it's like word for the fear of bumping the major version, because the 1.0 is the scary one. So I think a lot of developers get this, so they have like 0. whatever forever. But the point of NPM is that once you believe that your work is good enough for the public, you should publish the 1.0. It's just a fear you have to get like over. So that's what happened here. So 1.0. It was like this year, about a couple of months ago, but I did it. So the interesting thing about this release was that I managed to attract attention from an American company because they are doing certain product where tables happen to be like really crucial. And for some reason they saw potential in my solution and they wanted to pay for me to work on my own library. So it's like the dream of open source developer. But yeah, sometimes that happens. So I just rewrote everything and started kind of pushing it to direction they need. So everyone is. I also rewrote the documentation. So instead of having like random files here and there I have actually a documentation site that contains runnable examples. I understood that the core design is like solid, but it needs some like sharpening. You have to take these core concepts out of your library and really make them shine. So that's what I did. So you get the rows and the column definition, React definition, but in higher level. I started using LERNA to manage the mono repo. So what actually happened quite fast is that instead of having one package, I had 8 packages. I use package readmes as a runnable documentation because I'm really lazy and I don't want to write a lot of documentation, so I will just use the readmes. The nice benefit of this is that when you publish packages, it should be up to date, and I don't have to write a separate documentation page describing what's going on. I understood that it's actually very, very cool to drive development using examples. So I have this documentation and I have these little examples there. So I'm like prototyping, like exploring what the current API enables me to do. So basically I wrote a lot of examples based on my client requirements. And from these examples, I started to understand that I might need this and that package. And then I started pushing the examples to actual packages, so they became readmes. So instead of having to like jump to package right away, it gave me a lighter way to end up with actual functionality. 2.00, so I broke something here. So now it's like 17 packages instead of 8. I discovered that there's like something that's like usable beyond tables. So there's React edit component. It should go to our own repository of its own at some point when I have some time. But again, I found something more generic within the table, which is kind of cool. And we get like more and more helpers for specific tasks like drag and drop or search. I realized that based on client requirements, it made sense to write a little like a wrapper or this layer between me and the client. So I have to work less and the client has to work less. So I wrote Reactable Easy. That's quite powerful. It's not as powerful as the default version, but it's powerful enough for the client. And it saves a lot of time because I don't have to be hacking their code all the time. I just hack the layer. So it's just to get the basic ideas at this point. So you get the data definition as before. You get column definition. It has changed a little bit. So you have property mapping as before. You have header mapping, which accepts label and it accepts even some customization through little format interface. We have cell mapping and it contains something known as transforms. So transforms are functions that are applied to a cell before you eventually format them. So you can intercept, and this interception mechanism allows you to implement inline editing and features like that. It's quite powerful. Finally, you can format the cell contents. And to make life a little easier, it's actually possible to resolve complex fields because they're like, let's say you have a country like FI or like DE or something like that, or ES. So instead of showing the ES or the FI to the user, you want to show like Finland or Spain. So then you resolve it. That's why resolvers and all that exist. And that's like the really core idea of this library. React side has evolved, so instead of being something rigid you cannot work with, I have something flexible instead. So I have little context that accepts header and body, and you can inject your custom functionality there. So you get a normal table out of this if you want, and you can add your custom rows or footers or headers, or you can have multiple bodies that get different data and multiple headers between bodies, and like you can do crazy things with it. 3.00 performance started becoming issue. So I implemented a technique known as virtualization. because the point is that you have like 10,000 rows, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to render 10,000 rows all the time. So instead, let's do a little viewport and render what's only visible in the viewport. So instead of rendering 10,000 items, you render only 10 or so. It has a couple of cool features, but we can discuss about those later. API, it shifted a little bit. As it just happens, you realize that naming isn't right or something like that. Rectangular easy became a little better because it got virtualization and something known as tray functionality, because it's actually a common concern for people that they want a table that displays tree data. So that's really a fun problem for a programmer to solve. So how do I fit tree data to a table? So I had to do that. And I noticed that there are like third parties, like Radium. And because Radium is what it is, it doesn't like follow the standard semantics of React or something like that. So I had to do hacks on my side so that it works. But you have to live with the ecosystem. And yeah, I made the mistake there. I mean, the new feature, so maybe it should have been like 3.10, but mistakes happen. 4.00, yeah, I started breaking things again, so that's what I meant with the fear, because when you get to 1.00 and start breaking things, you start getting to big versions. And yeah, this was like client requirement, but I really needed to push the version to kind of stay compliant with Semver. And yeah, you get features like all the time. It's just that's the way it goes. 5.00. I realized that earlier Rectangular Easy maintained a copy of state, of the column state. So I understood that that's really bad thing because you get duplicate state, and that leads to certain bugs. So let's say so that the user manages the state instead. And I removed state from the component and exposed a function that allows user to manage. And I started understanding that a lot of these release bumps are caused by Rectangular Easy. So because it lives like different life, maybe it should go to a separate repository. And of course, because Tree is new, we get like the API lives still. So of course, it's like a little problematic, but yeah, it was a good chance to make some changes to Tree API. 6.00. I saw also, because when I look at an API, I start seeing these inconsistencies sometimes. So in 6.00, I fixed some of these, or actually most. And yeah, I moved back to Jest. I mean, I had like testing set up, and it started feeling really slow and annoying to use. And in the meantime, Jest had evolved, so it had gained like incremental running when you run it in batch mode and all that. So it's like shiny and new. So let's move to Jest, and I'm really happy with Jest at the moment. And yeah, you get new functionality as always. But I watched the first release because I forgot to increase my pair dependency ranges, because I didn't realize that LERNA doesn't do that. So maybe it would be nice to have kind of pre-published flow, so you can test packages before publishing them. And yeah, always those fixes. 30 contributors by now, so it's like getting more and more popular that way. But as a downside, you get also support requests. So people, because they start using and they don't understand, then they ask questions and you have to answer. So that's like the downside of doing all this. So more 0.0. Yeah, bug fixes, features. I think I broke something because it's like bump. And drag and drop for 3 rows, so you can move these rows up and down. And yeah, now I pushed even more state out of easy, so it's like insane. And there was this guy, I don't know his real name, he's known as Gittoni, so thanks Gittoni. So we pushed this selection functionality to select tabular library, so you get like logic in one place, because the selection logic, it has nothing to do with tables. And there are like a couple of other bits like this that could be like pushed to own packages. So it would actually mean that people could like pick up the logic and use it with their tables and so on. What next? Yeah, as I said, logic has to be moved elsewhere, because it has not a lot to do with tables, and it was like a week or two ago, I realized that I have actually implemented the database engine. So it's like really crazy, but I have like 4-man database. And what I want is that I don't want to work too much, so let's let someone else do the work for me. So I have that community fixed up. And I see my role as like a shepherd. I don't want to work too much because I have other things to do. So, you know, I just like watch over peers. I get like feature, like people send me peers, I give them feedback, they work on peers, and everyone is. But of course, client is the king because, you know, you have to eat. So I work based on client demand and add features based on client need. There is some, like, you could say, there's always some technical debt in a project. I track code coverage, so I could kind of work on that. So increase coverage and decrease the places where bugs can hide. There are a couple of trajectories that work in Go, so it can grow steadily. Like it goes into maintenance mode at some point, so I do that separating, and that's it. It could be, I mean, it could go with supported model, so I get some income and everyone else features. So it's basically consulting model. Or it could become business. I could sell like a commercial version with support. It could become the React router of all the table libraries for React. I hope this doesn't happen because it will just suck time. So let's hope. What I've learned here. So I think it's quite fun to kind of explore your API through examples. So you write these little examples and kind of look at your library component from the user point of view. Because if you do that, you will end up with something that's actually fun to use. Instead of focusing on features and functionality, you need to look at things from the other side. Examples, they become packages, and examples become new README. So the flow is simple. And of course, at some point, ideally not too late, you write some tests so you don't break things. And it would be really good idea to have acceptance tests against the examples, because if you change the API and forget to change the README, everything breaks, or at least the example breaks, so that's not fun. Changelog management sucks, so I mean it has to be done, but it's really boring. So now I just, when I get new features done, I write them, and it will be like nice to automate this. So some people do some extraction based on Git. So they get like initial dump, and then they edit it together. So that's like one way. So yeah, the ideal is like semi-automation. I do little Z hackery because everyone knows that you can use AVG and Z to do absolutely anything. So I use Z to mark the dates. This doesn't work if we get to next year, so you have to get release out this year, but otherwise it's perfect. Just about change logs, I saw this today. So you don't have to be boring and write with them with text. You can do images. So you could do like this marketing image which you tweet to your followers, and they tweet it to their followers, and you get this marketing effect. So make a nice picture that describes this and that has changed. So please use my awesome tool or library component, whatever. So open source is not about just developing, it's also about marketing and pushing your ideas. Because if you don't push, nobody finds, and you won't get peers and support requests, and you won't like spend your time on something you don't want to spend. I mean, it just depends on what you want. So if you want popularity, you have to push. Personal relations. I think monorepo was really good because it's far better than having a monolith. It just leads better design, at least in my case. So architecture is like far ahead of what it could be. I mean, if it was monolith. So it's just it was amazing, at least from my point of view. I believe that instead of having like the world's longest feature like list, like 1,000 features, you should have principles. So it's enough to have a couple of basic solid core principles and live based on those principles, because the features will follow. It's like, I believe that's the right way to design. So you need, like, the design is reducing all of the mass into something simple and understandable. So that's what you should do. I have to learn more about API deprecation. It's not fun to keep pumping the major version. I should give warnings to people and all that. API lessons. Instead of JavaScript, it would be kind of useful to use TypeScript or flow type or something like that that gives more feedback to your users instead of failing silently or like crashing the application of the user. It's fun to do something less. So maybe you can kind of check types and all that. Of course, the bugs, they are always in parts you have not tested, so it might make sense to have like high code coverage. But even if you have high code coverage that doesn't like guarantee anything, but it's still better than nothing. So coverage shows what to improve. Somewhere is very easy to mock up, so you can make huge mistakes like that. It's just amazing. It's just explained to like normal people. So you have major version. So yeah, now I broke something. So let's pump the major version or minor version. Yeah, now we have new feature. Let's push minor version or patch version. I fixed bugs. It's kind of simple, but not. Conver is a backwards compatible alternative to Semver. So it's like binary decision. Is this compatible or not? And then you figure out the version. Of course, the third option is like the most common in this world. So emover. So you have like emotional version, major version, minor version. And that's because people, even though, I mean, nerds don't admit it, but they are like emotional beings. About LERNA, just a couple of points. So you use it to manage multiple packages within the same repository. So it's good tool and bad tool. It's bad that it's too rigid, and I think the mistake of LERNA is that they are not using LERNA to manage the LERNA repository itself. So if you write a tool for managing monorepos, use the tool on the tool repository itself, so you get better design. So it has a couple of commands, like bootstrap, so it will install all the dependencies of all the packages. Publish, so you can publish new versions, of course, instead of having to go through all of the packages, it just pushes all of them out. LERNA run, so you might want to run a specific command for each package, so that's what it does. It has two versioning modes, fixed, like Babel style, or independent, so the packages live on their own. I wish there was a hybrid mode, so what I would like to see is that you could have like both in the same repository. So you could have like stable packages that are like fixed, and then you could have these development packages that are independent, because I think it's good to have like the packages in 0 point something for a while before you have like the APIs like really solid. So it will make my life a lot easier. But this is still like at idea stage, and someone needs to do it. But I hope it happens someday. Good things. You avoid configuration overhead. You don't have to figure out how to do webpack configuration for each package. You can do it once and forget about it. And instead of having a lot of repositories to maintain, you have like single repository to maintain. Easier to order. So when it's easy to order packages, of course you write a lot of packages, because there's like minimal pain. So there's like no decision to make. You just make the package. You get decoupled design. And I think that's a really good thing, and it actually might work for applications. Interesting thing about decoupling is that, yeah, well, I have table library for React, but of course the logic is it's pure JavaScript, so it's going to work with Angular or Ember or Vue or the next hot thing that we get next year. I can write integration tests against the packages, so I can have like multiple packages and I can see how they work together, so that's cool. Bad things. There's still like lack of understanding, and the tooling is not that stable. But it's like the idea is right, but the tooling is still not there. Like it's like mostly there, but not quite. Repositories can become huge, and if you make mistakes, like you push like binaries to Git, it's going to get like huge, big blob, and it's nobody likes that. There's a little bug in npm, so npm cdn makes a little. There's like coding mistake, they have not fixed it yet, so you have to hack around to get the readmes update. But of course, because it's more exotic setup and people cannot write that bootstrap, so maybe it's hard to contribute, I don't know. But it feels like it could kind of feel like scary to some people. Ugly things. But now you have like single issue tracker and you have tons of packages. Maybe you end up like Webpack that you have like 600 issues open. So maybe that's not that great. Automated releases, not yet. It might be in the future, but not yet. I would like to see this because again, it just takes away work. Change of management rougher than it should be. So again, maybe tooling is needed. Let's say you have this private monorepo and you want to hire a contractor, but you don't trust the contractor enough to work on the whole code base. So how do you do that? So it's like, I don't know. So you have like this tiny package you want to kind of push outside. So how do you do that without exposing everything? So this is like unsolved problem. Git log, because you get all of those commits in single, it can become large. A couple of API patterns and then we'll wrap up. We get a couple of questions and next speaker. So React component wrapping. Yeah, common pattern, so you pass children and do something with that. So I use this to make my API more flexible. So instead of emitting table, you can emit divs or something crazy. So you could like do a like list view or pretty much anything within certain limitations. Curry pattern. So if you know something about object-oriented programming, the op guys, they like to inherit. So the functional guys, they like to curry. So you can do this similar idea. So you have like initialization phase, and you get like a thinger to use, and then you apply the thinger. And this is like very powerful, and it's composable. So you can compose the curried functions, as you can see in the next slide. So I have this I borrowed compose from Redux, but you could use pretty much anything. But all of these accept rows, so you get this nice composition going on. So you get the data flow architecture. And actually, this code, it has nothing to do with React Tabular, but it just happens to work with it. So that's cool. I wrote a couple of books. There's like one on Webpack, one on React. Yeah, I know they need updates, but that's like after I get less busy and you get updates. You can read them free online. There are also like 40 interviews of Dan and like famous guys, you know. And there's Twitter and enough advertisement. Yeah. So I'm made in Finland, so you know that little country up there somewhere. And thanks to Sapegin and Alec. Yep. So if you have questions, I will try to answer, or you can, if you have, we can talk later on. Also. Yep.
Questions? No?
Isn't keeping things on 0 done something same as emo, as you referred to?
Yeah, it could be because I mean it's a little problematic when you have like 0.515 and then you get 0.20. So what happened in between? So and because people don't write those change logs, it's a little painful. So
I mean, if you look at Browserify, it never had 0 point something. It's a version like 14 or 13.
Yeah. But it's just that versioning is hard. And I think Conver is like good step to better direction because Conver is simpler and it's still compatible. So yeah.
You mentioned some tool for documentation. What the benefits of using this?
I mean, I author my documentation using Markdown. So it's like that simple for me. I write Markdown, I write little code, and then I get interactive example out of that code. Maybe I will show the site, so you see.
But you mentioned some tool for.
Yeah, I can show the tool. Yeah, there's like something. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, it's not my computer, so I don't really do that well with like, and they messed up the layout. Great.
I can enter.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. It's actually easier if I show the site, so I can find. So let's say you are like a user that wants help. So open chat, ask question, that easy. The tool, I will show, yeah. Here's the GitHub, so you can visit later, find the code. I think I'll give a little example. I just have to figure out like flashy thing. So, like this is like super simple example, but like yeah, it matches Ian out of Brian. Like super simple. And this it comes from Markdown. And the tool is catalog. So I don't actually like catalog, but I use it because it's good enough. I have like better ideas of how you should do it, but it's like when I have some time, I'll do it the right way. The main issue with catalog is that you get this 2 to 3 megabyte bundle, and it's single page application, and that's absolutely not how to do it. But it's worth checking out. Yep. Yep.
You talked about having principles over features.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate more? Could you put an example?
Yeah, I mean, it's just those 3 things. I mean, the data definition, column definition, and the React part. So something like transforms. Like the idea of what is a transform is like this little design pattern I discovered. So I have these little patterns, and currying. I use very consistently currying across my APIs. So that what I want is that people don't have to spend too much time with the documentation. They can just get the thing done. I also have this principle that because I don't like to do support work that much, I just want to push all of the work to users. So it's better for me to do something flexible instead of all the features.
Yeah, you mentioned that open source is not only developing but marketing also.
Yes, I believe it's like more and more because there are so many open source projects, so many developers, and they're like great projects nobody knows anything about. And that's because these guys have like no idea how to get their like work like visible. They might even not want that, but sometimes you might actually need to like put the marketing hat on and figure out how can I make it easier for people to find my work and use it.
And can you give us some examples of what you did with Reactabular to push the library up?
Yeah, so I chose anti-tactic because I don't want it becomes popular. So I did nothing.
And the last one.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a risk of if you have lots of separate packages? Do you think there's a risk that each package is then less popular rather than having one big thing? Which
I actually do something against it. So I have this like Reactabular package that actually aggregates all of the small packages.
Right.
So instead of having to get like 10 packages to get anything done, you get that one package and you get like benefits of the both worlds.
Right.
Yep.
You talked about sponsorization from company.
Yep.
How did it work? I mean, because it's open source code, but still your company paying.
Yes. Yes. So they understand the value. I mean, they came to me and they told that, yeah, we like your table component. We will pay for you to kind of work on it. And so far it has worked nicely. So we have this little business relationship going on. Both get something out of it. And actually it's in the company's interest that the table gets used. I mean, we get more and more users like every day. And they get better and better library because of that. So instead of keeping like, the alternative would be like for them would be to develop like table of their own. But then the problem is that it's something for them to maintain and it costs money. So
And you're free to, I mean, pay any voice in decision, or you're free to develop the library.
yeah, I can pretty much go to any direction I like as long as like I keep the client happy enough. But of course I prioritize what client might have like in mind. So he wants a feature, of course I add the feature.
So, thank you. We have more speakers.
Yeah. We got two more speakers for tonight. Here they come. Do you need to prepare a presentation?
Just 2 minutes. Find a file too. Okay, so I don't have the microphone, but I'm gonna talk loud. Do you hear me? No. So yeah, I'm David. I work here at Typeform since 2 years ago, and he's Francisco. Yeah. Both we are like front ends here at Typeform. So we're gonna just talk about like how we do front end, how is the story about front end here, and how like what are the next steps also. So yeah, exactly this thing. Sorry. So yeah, for giving you a little bit of story. So we begin like, we are the typical story of a startup that we just like, we need to rise a lot. There's a product going on. There's two crazy founders who have a great idea. They want to just develop fast. So we just like, I don't remember, I wasn't there, but like there was some kind of Symfony monolith writing in PHP. So the front end was just like rendering quick templates, having Backbone, jQuery, half with CoffeeScript. Everybody loved CoffeeScript sometimes, and half JavaScript. And yeah, we use a boost like the jQuery plugin that was like really fast to deliver something, but you didn't have any control on it. It was just like really frustrating to maintain. Also, like we don't have any control with the CSS. We just like, we don't have any UI kit or anything like that, any bootstrap. We just like copy paste less files, just like indentation was a mess, importance everywhere. So that's the typical situation that happens at the beginning of a startup. I know you figure out, but it's quite like hard to maintain and a little bit mess, but was okay. So yeah, and also like the linting. We don't have any linting, sorry. So like the description of tabs, spaces, semicolons, spaces, like was really, really shitty. So that's the phase when like you join a company that you think, oh, Typeform is fucking cool. Oh, but that mess, like you don't expect, right? But so as soon as Typeform get bigger, we grow from like, yeah, the product was like really shining. Like we had the money back, shit a lot of money. So, and the product was really, really working. We had like, the metrics was really high, the MMR, these kind of things that we don't care, but are getting there. We came from 20 to 140 persons here. So yeah, then we just, I think we are like 60 developers now here at Typeform. We are 5 teams, more or less, that do front end, around 20 persons, so we just need to organize a little bit better, because like, it's not maintainable at all, and we really want to make like Typeform much, much better. So the first step, well, why we are talking here is because like we tried React, like 2 old Typeformers there just wanted to try React because they thought that was cool. We tried in a small like piece of feature, and we thought it was really powerful, and we really like it. We thought there was really like a good abstraction on the DOM. Like at the beginning, like everybody would listen to the talk on Facebook that was like putting HTML on the DOM, on the JavaScript. Everybody was making fun of it. But then we figured out the props, like we figured out all of this stuff that it's fucking working. But yeah, so Typeform develop a little bit more, and the product comes and the design comes and says, we need to do like visual. We need to do like some kind of like rewrite everything, like another vision of Typeform. So like organize whatever you want, but the front end will change a lot. So it's just another experience of Typeform where you can just like create Typeform as fast as possible, and yeah. So we organize like in 4
hypes, we call it. It's just like verticals at the end. It's just like collect, create, conclude, and connect. Collect is just like collect responses. Is where like when you respond to Typeform, I think everybody responds to Typeform here. Come on. So it's actually like my team. We're working on collect. It's the render. We call it the render. It's where like you render the form. He's working on the create part when you create a Typeform. Pretty obvious everything. So yeah, that's it. It's just the render. Have few issues. Like if you open a form on the desktop, works pretty fine. But if you open in a mobile, it takes between 5 and 12 seconds to load. That's not a really good thing to have, even if we are fucking frontends. So we just want to improve that. So what we choose, instead of like keeping coupled to the Symfony application, we just write from scratch. It's like a greenfield project. Like everybody wants to do that in the life. So mainly it's for maintainability, because we want to create like more questions, more kind of questions, more features, and we couldn't. Like even like on the Jira, when you're creating Scrum and you're creating like a new feature, like the numbers became crazy. So maintainability was like one of the most important things. Also performance. We want to serve the Typeform as fast as possible, even like immediately. So and also responsive. So we had like 2 mainly projects, one for mobile and one for web, even fallback, like a version without JavaScript. So we want just one application that renders everything. That's sort of easy in like most of websites, but when you're working a platform that needs to like carry like all the fucking possibilities, and it's just like objective. So I joined just the team for create this project, and I say, okay guys, this is what it rocks now. I don't really know why, but it's fucking rock. So we need to use that, right? Like I see the pros, but I didn't have any experience at all. So I'd say what we need to do is like MScript 6. It's fucking cool. I made a presentation, and yeah, sure, let's do it. But like the rest of the team was like not feeling really comfortable with that. Like transpiling was like hard to debug. Source map, yeah, like some workarounds they definitely really comfortable. Webpack at the beginning was like a black box for them, so I was like the only one who responsible for the fucking Webpack. So it was really hard to maintain at the beginning. Also, they didn't trust on the modularization, like NPM. Like at that moment was like the trend for the front-end projects, but before was Bower. So it was like some kind of discussions around there. Yeah, everybody hates NPM. So yeah, we create a project from scratch that contains like a microservice that was like the server, the artifacts that you were like served from everywhere, a library that another team will require for just like do some kind of live preview, some schemable editor that was like making sure that the JSON schema was correct, and providing a really like helpful errors, and a development playground that you can just like fake this library in some way pretty easy. But we create a monorepo for that. That was like a crazy idea and looks like a mess. Also, part of my team didn't really like make confident with React. They thought that was like just a template engine, like handlebars. So they just like use the JSX part of React and not really enjoying like the possibility of the components, like what you give you to with the props, and you can compose them. They didn't really get the idea. So we were making some kind of MVP. MVP is like model view presenter. Was like a 20 years ago way of organizing the views, even in Java or C++ or something like that. That we didn't really like. So yeah, we just move on and we say, okay, for matching this kind of MVP, we're gonna use the streams because yeah, it's the hype and why not? So actually we say, okay, we're gonna have some kind of state management on top that observe some data, and the React is gonna render everything. So, but we didn't have one problem. Then we have a lot of knowledge about what observable is, because it's really like the API is really fucking big, and even the maintainers of this library is even fighting with them. And what's that? What's not it? So it's really a mess to follow this. Well, who use that for us at least. Also, we were like coming from people who was coming from backend, so they were trying to like put object-oriented patterns on like a reactive programming. That's not how it goes. They were like creating these streams in like some sort of truth and passing props until like the end of your component. Was super terrible. Also, we didn't follow the single state of truth that everybody I think here knows, that Redux and probably Flux also follows, and also neither the data flow that React is really, really helpful. So yeah, and also we did a small mistake with the product that we tried to to replicate the same exactly product. It's mostly because we thought that, oh, the product is fucking working, we need to do the same, right? But like some guy from Typeform explained us that, well, like give us light that when you are doing a refactor from scratch or right, you also need to like change a lot of things of the product, like learn what it works, what doesn't really work. It's more like design changes, but also like product changes. That's something that really, really changed everything. And also like appears ton of bugs. Like was like really hard in a project that was like 5 months, like even 5 months of age was like really hard to appear bugs everywhere because we were trying to cap like the scope as big as possible. So it was like really not what we should do. So suddenly like some changes happen on the team, like Danny joins the team and the tech lead goes to product owner, and then we say, okay, like we need to change the scope, like we change the direction of this, it's not fucking working, and we really need to like point it as project as it deserves. So, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, we thought we need to rewrite. Like we are in like 6 months project, and we say, okay, being honest, I cannot maintain this. Like it's taken me ages for maintain this, and I really want to like be as fast as possible in another open source project or whatever. So we say, okay, we now need to rewrite like part of the application that's really crucial. So we first begin with state management. Was like, as I explained before, like some kind of like singletons that was passing from the props and over React.js. So we refactor, and was like, my main idea was like a state machine, like a Typeform. If you visit it, then it just answer questions. It's not that complicated. But yeah, at the end it's a little bit with the logic jumps and stuff. Like it's inside there. So we thought that the best approach was Redux, that I think everybody here knows. I don't need to explain it, I guess. And just for like the asynchronicity, we just choose Redux Saga. It seems really easy to test and was like the best approach. We begin with thanks, I think as everybody. So, but we just jump to Sagas. Also, something that is really cool that we keep the monorepo. We had a monorepo with a service, as I explained before. The library that you can eventually import and everything, but we split in different libraries, and the npm private looks like that. What Trump said is that you need to automate everything. So what we did is like each pull request, each pull request that is merged. We check the commit, where it's come from. So you check where the first folder that appears. Something like LERNA, what does? We tried LERNA also, but didn't work. So we just have some bunch of scripts that we steal from the understalls, but we modified a lot of them. So we just check which is the folder that comes from this commit, and we publish a pre-release of this folder, and have like a script that makes the commit of this version on the other repos that has actually the artifact that goes to production or stage to production. And then we run the build. We're in the automated test that made for Cucumber, and the UI checks. It's an apply tools and browser stack that's for different browsers, etc. And the script matching. It's pretty cool. And then we deploy, like really straightforward. Yeah, and then we just feel a little bit comfortable around that. And then we have the possibility of other teams require our library. That was the goal, the main goal of our project, that we serve the form version of Typeform, but the builder part wants to like create the Typeform. As soon as they create it, let's just update the view of the Typeform. And this here is when Francisco comes to explain the create.
So as Sancho was saying, I work in create, and we take care of like the builder where people build the actual Typeforms. So also in V2, there was this new concept of creating a editor where you type your questions and you can live preview them on the right side in real time with the component that their team exports. And then you can also drag it up. There's a lot of nice features. So to do that, we decided to use TRAJECTORIES, which is a super powerful component API written by Facebook. However, it started to be hard to maintain the whole state of the form in the draft.js editor state. So we decided to break it down, and instead of having one editor for the full form, so if you go before, it was all one editor, and we decided to split it out by each block. So each question has its own editor, and it made like the drag and drop much easier to implement, for example. During this refactor, like we found out that, so we were using Redux and we were injecting we were connecting. So in the containers, we were using the state shape. So it meant that the containers were super coupled to the state object form. And so each time we changed the state form, we had to update all the containers that were reading from it. And to fix that, for example, we decided to use selectors. So each reducer also exports the functions that allow you to access to the state. So if you change the internal shape of your store, there's no, you only need to update the selectors, and all the components that, or all the containers that use them will benefit from that, and you don't need to change them. So with the selectors, they are decoupled, they are composable as the reducers, and if you use reselect, for example, you can get caching, so you only need to recompute the data if the data actually changed. One of the other challenges that we had is that we didn't want to create like everything from scratch, so we wanted to include the current, like the builder in the current platform. To do that, like as Sancho was saying in the beginning, like we are not using any kind of module system, anything on the monolith. So how we fix that on the wrapper that we call Burrito, we export it as a library on Webpack. So we say library target var, we publish it to npm, and then on the monolith we just need to npm install it, copy the files to the right place, and we can just include it as a script tag the old school way and just window.mount it. And like them, we decided to use multiple repos to test everything like in the single place. So if you are just working on the builder, you just test the builder. If you are working on some kind of button, you can just test the builder independently. However, this brought like lots of manual work. So each time you update a dependency, a project, you need to npm publish, and you need to go back to go to the projects that depend on it and do the npm install of the latest version. It's also very easy to lose the tags. So when you do npm version, it creates automatically a git tag. But if you don't do git push tags, it doesn't end up in the repo. So what was the solution? Again, automate everything. So on each push to master, we publish, if the build passes, we publish to npm using a tool called semantic release, which will read your commit messages. Like it forces you to use some words. So like you have to describe the kind of change that you are making on the commit. So you have to say if it's a fix, if it's a refactor, or if it's a feature. And based on that, it will decide what's the correct version that it's going to publish. And we'll publish everything, and everything happens in Travis. Like you don't need to do any manual process. When we get the new publish to a dependency, we have a webhook on GitHub that will trigger a Jenkins job that go to all the projects that depend on it, update the dependency, run the build, and if it passes, it pushes to master. So it's basically like Greenkeeper. I don't know if you know it, but without the PR's noise. So if everything passes, like just go directly to master. No, stop. And yeah, so that was basically our main problem. So going forward, what are the things that we want to do? So we are starting to have more teams working on V2, and sort of is the process. We are currently planning to make like a shared components library, so all the components go into one place, and you can also, if you are building an application, you can just use them. And the next project will probably be the metrics and the results panel. At the same time, both of our teams will try to push it to production as soon as possible, and so that all of you can try it. And maybe we are going to hire you. I don't know. So yeah, this is basically it. Like if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to dive deep into the code and just scratches later, and we'll be able to explain it. And that, so.
Yeah, if this thing sounds really cool to you and you are used to it, just come to us and talk about it, because it's what we really like, and we're gonna push forward for the next years.
I think we have time for a couple of questions, and then we can move to network. Team.
How did you convince the business team that the version 2 was needed?
Yeah, very good question.
So one of the problems was that it was starting to be super hard to implement new features because of the code was not maintainable. So I guess that was one of the main ways to
every time the product wants to create a new feature, we're like, oof, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen this year, or not even this month. Like we cannot do that. And they were like, why not? Like it's working now. What? You just added a few buttons. No, it's not like that. So it's more like maintainability was the main reason to explain like we're gonna stop like creating features. Like growth team is still like trying to A/B testing and some kind of fix, and even like bug fixing we're doing. But like for creating features, we just need to refactor. What's the main thing? The mainly reason.
So related question, but once you had created the first version, how did you convince business that you needed to refactor a 5-month-old product?
Yeah. Like that's even like better question. So yeah, at that moment like the team morality was affected. Like when you are working for like 5 months, something that is not in production, I don't see any result, and product is like, okay guys, like I need to know what you are doing, right? So we were like, we could provide something, but we're not proud already. So we are here to work as much better as possible, because we have some kind of values that we think that we're really good at it, and we really want to like make it as better as possible. One of our KPIs was the performance. We demonstrate that the KPI that was ours, we don't achieve it. Like even with 6 months project, we just ignore it. So was some kind of arguing between we're gonna keep releasing features, but we're gonna stop a few sprints where we are doing a massive refactor of like thousands of lines of code. So at the end, it was some kind of excuse / necessity for the team. So it was like the morality was the fact here.
So yes, it's an emotional question, but are you happy now with what you have?
Yeah, like yeah. So yeah, like that's a really personal question. But so I never heard about it. Yeah. So I'm really happy. So when I joined the team and someone said, we're gonna use Erect.js, I was like, okay, what's that? So I read that, I see like a bunch of documentation, but I didn't understand nothing at all. So I was like, okay, so probably the source could say me something. I spent 1 week like doing 0 commits and trying to understand what's the library that we're gonna use that is fucking big and is not productive at all. And I understand what observable is and what observable is. Like that's sounds really easy, but I'm used to like work with Node. So what's the streams, but are not the streams at all. So I fight really hard to get that. And also when I see like all my team doing classes, doing like APIs and stuff on top of streams, I was like, okay guys, you need to do the same as I did. Like learn what's the API, what's the purpose of the reactive programming, instead of creating classes and instances and stuff that doesn't make any sense. So personally, that moment I was really frustrated with the workflow. Even like what I've explained before was like a monolith. So the webpack config was the worst config that you can imagine. So, and I was the only one who was maintaining it. So it's even worse for me because I was like the only one who was maintaining it. So yeah, we keep trying to iterate as minimum as possible. So we step back from Jasmine to Mocha. That was like the first step that was really hard. We just try LERNA, we try the scripts. So every step that we are doing, I'm happier with the code and with the like atmosphere of the team. So yeah.
But also as a product.
Yeah. So like the product also.
Because you mentioned that you had a problem with the performance and so on. So now you feel
like I remember the week when we deployed the refactor. That was like, okay, that could explode. That could happen, right? It's a stage, could explode. We have the UI checks, but it was like, we are sure. Well, let's see. Let's do it on Monday morning. Let's see how it happens. But yeah, it was really well. Like that thing, we were like everyone is really responsible around that because it was like the factor everyone. We made some kind of, that's another topic, but we made some kind of mock programming. So we sit 5 of us in a room with one laptop, and we just switch around for the refactor. And there was like new people on the team, so it was like really useful for them for the onboarding, and really useful for us that the things that are really like water smelly, and we need to like remove it. So yeah.
And the last question.
In development, when you started to do refactoring, were it two separate things, or you had to do like rebases time to time?
So we have this kind of Fridays like on Fridays we don't work actually. We just yeah the beer, right? No, on Fridays we have this kind of like free time for do like communication between teams and work on spikes or just do crazy things. At the beginning, Nabila and I were like trying like remove the state management that we had before, and I remember like in 2 days we refactor half of the application only in 2 days. So we say like that's really easy. Was tested, was like perfect. So we tried to push for that direction, but the rest of the team was like not really trusting on Redux and these kind of principles because at the end it's just the principle. So yeah, we tried for that, and then when Danny joined, we say okay, we have like the time as we want, and then we just spend like a few sprints on that. Yeah.
We did it in one sprint.
Well, we deploy it in the next sprint, so Scrum says that Dawn is in the next sprint.
So thanks everyone again for joining us today. And again, if you have any talks or ideas, just find me or Dmitry, or just like comment on Meetup, or just directly on GitHub on React branch that we have. And I hope to see you next week. And we have, I think, 25 minutes to do it working. So yeah, thanks.
Do it fast.